All right, what's up, guys? Welcome to the 50th episode of The Get Down. My name is Cream.
Gary W. here.
So I know we've been talking up like this big 50th episode. Not happening, guys.
Yeah,
not happening.
120 gigs a month gets in the way. I traveled back and forth. Now, this is going to be my third trip this weekend in 6 weeks or in 5 weeks, which is like crazy. So the schedule's been wild all around for everyone. It's really just hard to line up what we wanted to do, but I think that's coming soon. It's in the pipeline and it's going to happen.
Yeah, I think the plan for us was to kind of just have a bunch of the Get Down guys and kind of maybe just run through maybe 10 or 15 minutes with a bunch of them. And just talk a little bit about like where we were to where we are and where they are individually. And I think that's kind of the plan. So you'll get that planned 50th episode at some point in the next couple episodes. But
it's funny. I was talking to one of our guys about the episode and like what we had planned to do. And he said, it's funny. He's like, I know everybody on the group chat that we have on our WhatsApp, but he's like, I really don't know where people started, what genre they play, how they play. And don't really know them personally. So he's like, I think it would be cool even for our DJs to get to know what our other DJs do.
Yeah, that's really funny. I never really thought about that, but our team has really grown quickly, and there are, there's some newer guys that haven't been around for the last 3-4 years,
Yeah. I mean, just this past 6 months, obviously we've gotten crazy in the last 2, but even over the last 6 to 8 months, it's been a lot of new faces.
Yeah.
And that are bringing a fresh perspective. So it's going to be interesting to hear from some of our guys and obviously to let everybody know their stories as well.
Yeah. So I think what we wanted to do on this episode was kind of take a look back a little bit on, some of the guests we've had on and why we started the podcast in the first place, because a lot of you might not even know that after 50 episodes, I don't expect most people who are listening to this episode have actually listened to all 50 or the first one even,
Yeah. I mean, when we recorded the first one, I feel like you always think about milestone episodes, 25, 50, 75, 100, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I feel like 50 is really out of reach. Is that going to happen once everything comes back? Are we going to still be interested? Is it still going to be, a teaching / entertainment podcast as we want it to be?
Right.
And I think it's built in momentum even more than we thought initially, as far as how much knowledge that we can impart on guys that are just coming up in the industry. I felt like, at some point we're gonna really struggle to figure out some subjects.
Yeah.
Right. I just feel like each week we deal with new sets of circumstances that we could talk out on the podcast, and it works out nicely.
Right.
For numerous reasons, for you and I to talk out situations, and then for also to educate people.
The podcast has been something that you've really wanted to do for years. And kind of how we looked at it was, all right, well, you and I are having these in-depth industry conversations every week. We're talking out the stuff that's happening to us and getting each other's advice. So why shouldn't we just do that on a podcast and help a lot of people? Because if you and I are going through certain things and we've been DJing for 10, 20, like however many years, it's like the DJs who are on a much less experienced level, I'm sure are going through the same issues, if not more, Definitely. So that was kind of like why we started it. And I think, like you said, like when we weren't DJing, it was getting harder to come up with topics because you hit 20 episodes and it's like, all right, like what else can we really talk about? Like how much more can we talk about? Well, how's the pandemic treating you kind of thing? So I think
that was something, not to cut you off, that was something that really got nerve-wracking there for a while. It was like, wow, well, we just kind of keep talking about how the pandemic's affecting our industry, which was top of mind topic of conversation for everyone at that point. So it's been nice to pivot out of that and then get into the actual, meat and potatoes of actually DJing and dealing with situations within nightlife.
Yeah, 100%. And something that helped us also was we built out an online course that had like 125 hours worth of material. So
Yeah.
whenever we got into a jam, we could be like, oh, well, let's go look at the course and talk about something that we talk about within the course.
Right.
We haven't really talked a lot about GDU lately, but that'll be something that, you know, we'll probably do another little push on here in the coming months or weeks.
Yeah, guys, look out for that for the fall. I think that's going to definitely be something that you'll be hearing about again. You know, we've had a couple new learners sign up for it, and it's just it's so useful. All the information in there is so useful. You know, so much so that we've sent it to all of our DJs just to review, just so that they have an idea if they have any questions about certain topics. So. Now, the reason why, like, I really wanted to start this podcast, right, is because, like, podcasts had become at one point, like, the only thing I was consuming. I wasn't watching regular cable television. I was just kind of doing my, you know, like my Disney podcasts, my, you know, learning podcast. Listen, guys, I'm a Disney geek. You guys should know this by now. But like, and I always thought it was interesting that like these people would sit around at a round table and be able to come up with ridiculous conversation week after week about, you know, about like Disney World and things like that. And I'm like, well, if they can do that, like, why can't we do this with topics of DJing? Right.
Right.
So I always envisioned it as a round table. And I always said that when we had the office that, oh, you know, you sit in that one little room that we shot a couple, episodes of what did we shoot in there? I don't even remember what it was called. Was it Get Down Radio? The interviews?
Yeah, we were doing the Get Down artist spotlight. So they would create the mix for our music podcast, and then we would do a little, you know, maybe like, I guess it varied in length, but maybe under a 30-minute interview to kind of go in depth on the artist that made the mix.
Wow. Speaking of which, we should really get all that stuff on like SoundCloud and whatnot. Really dig back into that.
Get it on YouTube too and stuff, wherever we put our content.
Right. So anyway, that's kind of where it spawned from, just like the consumption, that my own personal consumption, and then the interest in wanting to hear about the DJ industry, because I feel like that lacked. Now, I think we've spoken about this in the past, but like Conflict had that's something that you put me onto. His podcast was always very good. I don't know if he's still doing that or if he's even still DJing. Would love to have him on. Smart dude. Really great podcast. And I think that really inspired us to kind of do this, especially at a time when there wasn't as much happening. But then there was always that nervous feeling that you had, because like, I'm not a mic person, right? We've said this time and time again. I don't get on the mic a lot when I'm DJing. Maybe at like a really, you know, good live party. Like I'll jump on if there's like good energy in the room, but like otherwise I stay away from it. And I think that like, in talking to people that listen to our podcast, they're like, yeah, those first like 5 or 10 episodes where, you know, you could tell we really got our feet under us after a certain.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know what we were doing on the back end or even on the recording part. And I'm sure if we go listen to episode 1 or 2, it's probably going to be terrible. Actually, the first episode, we told our DJ stories. So like we made it easy on ourselves.
Right.
To be able to, you know, if you're talking about yourself, it's a lot easier than if you're trying to teach something or coach someone on something, I think. So
those first few interviews, not even few, first like still like, I don't know, the first like 6 or 7 were just very nerve-wracking.
Super nervous
the whole time, just like not comfortable in interviewing people. Number one, I mean, that's a completely different skill set.
Yeah, I still get nervous on the interview episodes because, again, it is something that you learn as you practice and get better at. So
being able to listen intently and then being able to respond pretty quickly is difficult.
Yeah.
And every time you have a guest that you've never met, it's like a first date over and over and over again, you know?
Yeah. I mean, let's run off some of the names of guests we've had, right? We've had who? Carlos Belange and Kova.
Yeah.
Rick Wonder, Beat Breaker. Who else?
Rivas. Nice.
Dramos.
Soto
from Charleston.
From Charleston, right?
Eric, the owner of Trio. Yeah. A bunch of Get Down guys.
Gavin.
Castra. Gavin Boss.
Ferrari.
Which
we've done a pretty good job with peppering in guests. I gotta say.
I think we've been slacking a little bit with the guests lately, but it is really because we've been so busy, and the holiday weekends really put a damper, like crush us, because it's an extra day of work, and
my travel days kill us too.
Yeah, you're traveling, so we're gonna get back in the mix with the guests, and that's something that I think is really important. I think it brings a lot to the show, so I think that's important, and we're definitely gonna get back to, having dope guests.
Yeah, I think the variety in the guests that we've had over the first 50 have been really good. They've all brought different perspective, right? So like Castra from like a heavy Castra Emperari from like more of a heavy production standpoint, and like dealing with
and signing records and record labels,
dealing with like real like labels and
they're real deal artists.
Right. So I think that was really good. And then you have, the Rick Wonders and the Beat Breakers of the world that are like,
top of the world
DJs.
Open format, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people want to be where those guys are.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of humbling to talk to those guys. I mean, Beat Breaker been, like I said on the episode, playing his records since like 05, 06, whenever he started making them with Brooklyn Clan. Like that was really cool to like be able to sit and have him on the show. Like I never thought when I was playing his records 15 years ago that would be something that would happen,
Yeah, that was a great episode. I was a big fan of that one.
And then Rick, obviously, just like looking up to Rick and what he does in New York City and his image that he portrays out there, and just the fun party vibe that he brings to every gig that he plays, and then also the way he markets himself. It's just he's just incredible in what he does too. And then all the back end stuff that he has going on is really something that I think we both look up to. So like, and then Revis, just like young, up and coming, big guy who does edits and bootlegs and whatnot. And the splash that he's made within the DJ community has been huge recently. So it's been really a nice balance of, some older talent, newer talent, production, DJs, bookers, marketers, things like that.
I loved the Carlos Balange episode, because anytime I talk to Carlos, I always get super inspired and motivated. And that was awesome. The Dramos episode was awesome because same thing, like, whenever I talk to Dramos, we don't even talk about DJing or music really. We talk about everything else, which I always appreciate. And
I think Carlos and Dramos bring that same.
We had Kova on. I was Kova's first guest on his show. And last week he had Gary V on his show. So think about the growth from where Kova was when we first started the show to where he is now. And it's super awesome to see.
That's insane.
I wanted to shout him out for that, because he texted me and told me he was going to have Gary. And I was like, wait, Gary V, like the Gary V?
I was watching Gary V last night, and I was watching one of his overrated, underrated. I don't know if you've ever watched them.
I don't really watch a lot of his stuff.
I don't watch a lot of it, but like sometimes when I'm scrolling past, there's always some interesting. I like the overrated, underrated because they're like little quick hitters, like 4-minute episodes. And he actually said, he's like, podcasts underrated. Still thinks podcasts are underrated. He still thinks that they're in their infancy. And I like to listen to some of the things that, like, his perspectives, because he has a pretty good inclination in where certain things are going.
He's very good at that. And for someone who's so successful, he's still pretty grounded, which I appreciate. He gets a little too rah-rah for me. It's like not really my thing.
Yeah, but at least I think it's coming off genuine. I feel like I've seen some rah-rah guys that are trying to do the Gary V thing that you can tell that it's like disingenuous. Like it's not like who they really are.
Yeah.
I think that's who Gary V is all day long. Like
I agree with that.
He's not putting the face on for the podcast. And you hear a lot of podcasters say things like that. Like, it's really hard to be. So this one golf podcast that I watch religiously, Rick Shields, he's got 1.7 million followers. It's insane. And he was like, whenever I was like, he was a teacher as well. And he was like, whenever I was teaching lessons, he's like, I got to a point where people were just trying to do meet and greets. And he's like, and then I had to be on.
Yeah.
So it's like, so then you could tell, like, you're turning it on for the camera. And then I guess to a certain extent you have to, right? I mean, this a little more than me because you do a little more content where like, you know, for our GDU stuff, and then when we were doing GDU bites. So like you do kind of have to turn it on for a second, right? And it takes a little energy to
yeah,
record those.
you definitely need to be in the right mind state to be able to like, yeah, you have to turn on your camera face and voice, and, you know, you have to be enthusiastic about it. And, you know, if you sit there like a wet rag and you're just like, you know, like I'm going to talk about this today, like nobody's going to want to listen to that. So you have to show your personality a little bit. And I think that's a part of how you gain viewership or listenership, you know?
Right, for sure. But yeah, I think, you know, certain guys you can tell when it's genuine and when it's coming across that way. And I think those are the guys that are successful.
Yeah.
But so what do we think about like the future of the pod? Where do we see it going? Like, I don't know. What are some guests that you hope to have? I don't know if that's something you want to throw out there.
Yeah, I think we want to grow the podcast and have bigger and more guests. I think that to me is where we can improve personally, where I think we can go.
Right.
Lately it's been a lot of you and me, which is great too.
Yeah.
But I do think having these guests on brings certain perspectives and really helps the audience kind of stay motivated and get an idea of how they can get to where certain guys and girls are.
Yeah. I agree.
And I think making sure we keep our guests really diverse. So business people, marketing people, DJs, producers, you know, maybe A&Rs or whatever it might be, radio people. I think that would be really important. And I think we did a great job of that in the first 50. I just think we need to do it more now, you know?
Yeah. I think getting some women involved in some interviews, I think, and seeing how, you know, women's presence in the industry, I think it's something that's building. I think that's becoming more prevalent and something that is definitely important in the DJ world and in the nightlife world. So I think that would be a good focus. That would be a fun one. I think that would gain a different, obviously, perspective, just because that I feel like, you know, they're kind of in an uphill battle.
Yeah.
You know, because this is such a male dominated industry. I mean, I know how that is because I was a teacher for 13 years and that's a women dominated industry. So like it's difficult when you step into like a school and like you're one of 2 or 3 male teachers, you know.
I already know who our first female guest should be.
Okay.
We're gonna make that happen. I'm not gonna share it yet, but I'll share with you off air.
All right. Yeah, and I think maybe coming at it from more of a business perspective, I think that's probably a good. You know, those are 2 of my interests. So some people that are really vested in the business side of it, and then also women. I think those are important things.
I like that. I think that could be a focus for us. I'm into it.
Yeah.
What are you gonna say, guy?
Like as usual, we're just talking stuff out on the podcast.
No, so I think what we wanted to do, we're gonna keep this pod short, but I think similar to when we have guests on, we're gonna do a couple quick hitters between the 2 of us. I think.
I like it.
So like I have a list. We can go down the list and like we could each answer the questions. If there's one that you want to start with, I don't know.
I'm going to just let you pick it. We're going to do a true quick hitter here.
All right. So let's go down the list of how we would do this with guests.
All right.
Is there a failure that really stands out that helped you become more successful?
Is this I think one of our guests asked us, in the DJ world or like just in general?
I think it could be either, because a failure in general maybe motivated you to get your business life better off.
I think early on as a young DJ, when I was like 14, 15, like doing my first bunch of gigs, there's always that like, and my mom and dad could attest to this because they'd always have to, because I wasn't driving, they'd have to like run stuff to me. I would always be like unprepared in some way, you know, where there was like wires missing or whatever it was. And I feel like when you get stuck in a situation and you're supposed to be playing a gig and you don't have certain things, I feel like that feeling like that I'm getting it right now, like getting like that gut feeling, like it's something you just don't forget. You know, it's just nerve wracking, you know, and I feel like that happened several times, like in just starting out.
Yeah.
And I feel like that kind of helped me later on just be more prepared and be more cognizant of like, how I need to prep for a gig. Just like, as we always say, like preparation is like 80% of the gig, right? The other 20% showing up and executing. So yeah, I feel like that nothing major that stands out where it was like catastrophic.
Yeah. So like early on, the only real failures that I could think of would be like, I got too drunk, or I had like a technical thing that maybe the sound dropped out, or like something like that, that maybe be like, all right, I can't let that happen again. And like, I need to really figure that shit out so I'm good.
Yeah.
But more recently that I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily a failure, but it definitely put a chip on my shoulder and like checked me a little bit. Was I was a resident with the same group at Teak for 3, 4, however many years, and then at Birch for the first 3 years that Birch was open. And at one point, the owner and managers of Birch came to me and said, "Hey, I don't think we're going to have you here every Saturday anymore." And whether that was because I wasn't doing as good of a job, whether that was because whatever, they wanted to change formats, whatever it might be, I think about that all the time. And I still DJ at Birch. We still were booking DJs there. We have a great relationship with them. So it wasn't like I got fired or anything, but I think about that all the time. And I was like, I got too comfortable, or maybe my sets were too similar, or maybe whatever, maybe I got too fucked up, and whatever it was. But I think about that all the time. And it's like, no matter how successful you get, or how well you think you're doing, or how big you think you are, in a blink of a second, you might not be there. And I think about that all the time when I walk into gigs. It gives me that extra, I'm going to fuck this set up because maybe I didn't do that good and I'm not at Birch every Saturday anymore.
Wow. It's the, like, not as petty, but like the Michael Jordan syndrome. Like, well, I feel just slighted a little bit. Now I'm going to go get it.
And whether I was, they were right or wrong, or like, I probably overthink the whole situation because that's just what I do. But that would be my one quote unquote failure.
Okay. I like it.
All right. What is an unusual habit or weird thing that you love? I have about 100. So
I know. An unusual habit or weird thing that I love. Man, I'm thinking like food off the top of my head for some reason. I don't know.
I'll go first.
You go first, because I don't know.
All right. So I would say something that I absolutely love and spend time on every day. I love fantasy sports. I will do I do fantasy hockey. I don't know 5 players that are in the NHL. I just like fantasy sports. I do daily fantasy for baseball and football. I do season long for all the sports. I just love it.
Man, I don't know. I don't really have, I just don't feel like, I mean, I'm an unusual person, period. Like there's, I don't think that many things that I'm doing.
I'll pick one for you.
Go ahead.
And this is probably because of work, but whatever. I think that like it's extremely unusual that as a DJ and someone in nightlife wakes up as early as you do every day.
I guess that is unusual. But I've been like that since I'm like 11, 12 years old.
Yeah.
Like my buddies would always be like, what the hell are you doing up at 7 a.m. on a Saturday?
Yeah.
And like you DJ till 2:30 in the morning.
Especially
when I was like 17 and everybody's sleeping until 1 o'clock, they're like, well, you DJ'd Thursday, Friday, Saturday, because I had a residency until 2:30, got home at 3, and now you're up at 7. That's like just screwy. But it's something that's always stuck with me because when I was 17, it was Thursday night. I still had to get up for class on Friday at, 7. So that just carried throughout the weekend, and I still do it. And it's even worse now because my part-time gig, I have to be up at 4:30 to go to work.
Yeah.
So right now is really strange. I come up by you guys. I play all the nightlife stuff. I'm getting home at 4:30, 5 o'clock, especially when I'm in the city every night. And then I get about a day off, and then I got to switch it and then get up at 4:30 as opposed to going to bed at 4:30. So it's screwy. Is it healthy? Probably not, but it's something that I'm pretty used to, like being able to like switch my schedule so quickly. Because with teaching, I had to do the same thing. And it was even worse because that was more consistent. I have a
And you
couple
had
more
like
days
0
off.
days off then.
Right. So yeah, I guess that is a little unusual that.
All right. What is your favorite gig you've ever played and why?
I have one that stands out to me, and you were there, strangely
Wow.
enough.
I don't know which one it is, but I can't wait to hear.
One night at Troy, it was like the sweatiest.
All right, I know exactly the day.
Most disgusting temperature-wise room that you could be in. But I guess from doing my basement frat house and actually growing up throwing parties in my basement in Secaucus.
Yeah.
In my parents' house while they were home sometimes to like 75 people, and just like having this sweaty little area that's it recreated that for me. Like, I think I went through 2 shirts that night. It
was hot in there.
It was hot. And then it was like, I think it was you. I think Pharaoh was there. There's a bunch of people.
Yeah, it was like our West 5 family.
To the left of the booth. And I
think Jay Eagleson was there that night.
Yeah, I think so too. And that crowd was so responsive and like you just play anything and got real.
The crowd's right on top of you. It was packed. It was turntables. Like it was just a dope setup.
It was the most DJ experience that you can like. If you were like, this is what DJing is, that's what it is right there. And like right in the middle of the meatpacking district, which is like you couldn't pick a better venue. You couldn't pick a better venue as far as the area of New York City that it was in. And then also the venue itself was just like conducive to just a fucking party. And that's one that really stands out to me.
I can't, it's hard for me to pick one that I really, really loved, but I'm going to pick a newer one because after however long of having questioning my job and if this is what I was going to keep doing and DJing and if we were ever going to get back to where we wanted to be, the first real DJ gig I played as a headliner was at DJs Memorial Day weekend, and it was just pure madness. And I played like a mini bar set to start early because it was so packed. I played bangers, I played calling, I hit the whole spectrum. And it was just insane energy. I got goosebumps like 20 times. So
that's awesome.
I don't know. I think that one really stands out. I mean, there's some other ones that I played in Atlantic City with like some acts that I can really remember.
The one that your birthday set,
my birthday set
we were at, and like no disrespect to Kungs or anything, but like you buried his set, and
that was a day where I finished my set and I was like, I could play anywhere in the world. Like, I know I can, and I'll crush it. Like I left that set with so much confidence, and I remember that. And I was so happy to have all you guys there to like be a part of that. So that was awesome. Those are the two, definitely.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Cause that Kungs one is one that's the one I would have said for you.
Yeah. And that was the one I was thinking also, but I know we talked about it already once before. So
it's ironic that our 2 favorite sets that we were at, because we're never at each other's sets. Like, that's strange.
Yeah. Well, I think that's part of it though, right? You like the people who are around you while you play can sometimes make your set stand out also.
Yeah.
Because like you were playing stuff that night that you knew that I liked and Jay liked and the people that were with us really liked, and it makes it more fun and you connect more with your friends. So
yeah, true.
All right, we'll do a couple more.
I was gonna say, hit him with one or two more.
Let's see. Let's do. What is your biggest challenge right now as a DJ?
My biggest challenge right now is, well, first of all, I'm not DJing every weekend, so I'm not on top of my music as much as I should be. But I did learn from my last time up from 2 weeks ago, is that you don't get caught up in having to be on top of what's coming out like this week. As we know, things still take time to settle in with the masses, so it takes a little bit. I'm always good with like being a little late to the party and then throwing those tracks into my sets. But I think right now, I think staying on top of music and then another big one for me is, and this is very recent, is just the need and want to do a little more production. I have a lot of ideas that I've really sat down in front of Ableton a decent amount, more than I ever have the last 3 weeks.
Love that.
Just finished an edit with UFOso last night. So that came out good. And that was nice because like I built it all out and all the ideas were there, and he just helped me kind of like along the ways with the things that I didn't know. And I think that's a fun way to learn. Like, and we were doing it on Zoom, and he was just sharing his screen, and we were kind of going over, what we wanted to do and how we wanted it to sound. And he put his microphone to his monitors, and it actually worked out perfect.
Really?
Yeah.
Sick.
So it was like we were both in the same room. So it worked out really, really nice. So those are the two main things. I think a little more production and a little more stay on top of my music.
I think something you brought up that I want to piggyback on, there's so much music that comes out, right? And on a week-to-week basis, how many songs do you really have to have? Like if a Drake album comes out or whatever, if something like major that you're going to play comes out, you have to have it. But I think something that's more valuable for you to spend your time on right now is going through the music that you actually already have and the folders that you already have, and reorganizing and just updating some folders so your sets don't get stale. I think that's more important than downloading new music right now.
Absolutely.
So, for me, that's something that I've been focusing on more so than downloading new music, because we went a year without really doing that. You go a year of not really DJing and you don't really worry about that. But now that you're really DJing, you need those folders to be super on point. You're playing different types of parties. You're playing different rooms. So I would say that. But
4th of July night, I played, I'm not even kidding you, Cream, 6 hours of bangers, nothing but bangers for 6 straight hours. But that was because on my flight up, I made sure that all of my pertinent party crates were organized correctly, where like I had 10 to 15 tracks that I knew were can't miss tracks that people would sing along to.
Yeah.
In like many different crates, in my hip hop crate, classic, et cetera, et cetera. And it just makes the set so much easier. Whereas if it was the first time that I came up in April, I was more focused on downloading music.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Last one. I think this is the last question we ask all of our guests. So I wanted us to answer it, especially now. What advice would you give young DJs or DJs that are looking to break into nightlife right now?
Network. We all know that that's the answer. And we probably, we're kicking a dead horse at this point.
Yeah.
But you need to be in the clubs. You need to be in the bars that you want to work at. You need to be present. I am a great example of that. That's why I'm not really working down here. Everything's about an hour from me. After waking up at 4:30 in the morning, I don't feel like doing that kind of legwork.
Yeah.
Realistically, and trying to run our business and everything else. So get into the venues that you want to be in, meet the people that you want to be involved with. It's easier than ever to do so via DM, so on and so forth. So just network, man. I think that's the best way to do it. Get network. And then I think I'm going to leave this one to you, because I think this is what you're going to say.
What I'm going to say.
Yep. So I'm not going to say it. So go ahead.
My advice would be, if you're a DJ and you're hitting up Gary and I, let's say, or any other group, right? And you're networking and you're meeting the people that are making the decisions, when they ask you to do something, say yes. Figure out a way to make it happen, because if you go out of your way and help them out, or if they think of, hey, I want to book you, I like this DJ, they've been coming around, they've been hanging out, I like their edits, whatever. When the opportunity arises, even if it's something that you don't necessarily really want to do, say yes, because a lot of times you got to eat shit for a little while and maybe do some stuff you don't want to do, to then be able to get to the higher level venues and gigs. And I think that you have to pay your dues. And I think
that's life.
That's life in general. Anything that you're going to want to do, you're not going to start working with somebody and get the A shift ever in any job or industry,
Right.
Like
right.
if you're a bartender and you get hired somewhere, you're likely not getting the Saturday night 10 p.m. shift. Like, it's probably not happening.
Right. 1,000%.
Until you do the Tuesday night and the Thursday night and the Saturday afternoon and the open shift on Sunday morning that nobody wants to do. Because then the person that's booking you understands that you're there to work and you want to work and you're there to be a team player, and you deserve to now get the Saturday night booking. And I think a lot of DJs right now, they don't want to do that. And I think a lot of people right now, they don't want to do that. And sorry, maybe that's an old school thought process, but like, I think that's how the world works.
That is. I mean, you said it. Pretty much across anything that you do in life, you're most likely have to eat shit for a little bit and like really, take your lumps. And then you got to build from there, because those like for us, those lower end gigs are great learning experiences, and you can carry some of that stuff into your bigger gigs, and without that base, sometimes I think you can get lost in the shuffle. Like if you elevate too quickly.
Yeah, I agree. And I think for people that are booking you, if they've never worked with you before, they're not going to put you into a situation that can hurt their business right away.
Right.
They're going to put you into a situation to ease you in, to get feedback. Like we just did all of our bookings for August today. And there were a couple people who they say yes to everything that we ask them for, no matter where it is, no matter what it is. And I literally said to them like, yo, I really appreciate you guys. Like this is going to lead you to more stuff, to better stuff. And like, that's how it works. And so, yeah, that's super important to me. And you could see I get passionate about it because, but that's how a lot of the people that are now like working with us 8 gigs a month, like that's how they started with us.
I mean, Angelo the Kid playing how many Pilsner House gigs?
Yeah. Like anybody that works with us, they all did gigs that sucked.
Which not Pilsner House is a great venue. Love to go hang out there, especially. But their nightlife was something to be, there wasn't it wasn't a packed house.
It wasn't Birch. It wasn't whatever the big gigs. Like it's not.
Right.
So
I think it's a good place to leave off, sir.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you guys for listening to us, for supporting us. We appreciate you guys. And
big shout to DMP as always.
Yeah, big shout to DMP.
We didn't bring them up during the episode, so I wanted to make sure to give them a little shout. Yeah, man. All right. So thank you guys for listening. 50th episode of the Get Down. We've been doing this. Yeah, not bad. Not bad. I'm impressed we got here. Yeah, me too. Proud of us. All right, guys. My name is Kareem. Gary Debbie. Talk to you next week. Peace out. Right. Peace, guys.